Today we're going to talk a little bit about how you can harness your soil health to increase profitability on your farm. So we'll run through the agenda here. We'll just get through an introduction and then a little background on the science and logic behind our product and what we're doing here at Sound. But we're also going to talk about fertilizer impact and how it can actually harm your most valuable asset, which is your soil. Then we'll talk about our product source, what it is, how it works, and how it can work on your farm. Talk about some early season results from 2022, and then we'll finish up with some Q&A at the end. Like I said, we're with Sound Agriculture. My name is Rebecca Helget, and I lead the inside sales team.
And I'm John Parrish. I'm the agronomist for Nebraska and Colorado.
So it's likely some of you still haven't heard of Sound Agriculture and who we are. And we are an ag tech startup, and we are on a mission to create tools for growers that are going to help increase efficiency and help you become less reliant on synthetic inputs. We're going to do this by harnessing that power of your soil, and in turn it results in a more agile and resilient agriculture system. So let's talk a little bit about fertilizer. So I know when we talk about fertilizer, we usually think of positivity. We think of more bushels, we think of more profit and more money. So we think about it positively. But let's switch gears and actually think about how using too much fertilizer can harm our soil. So thinking about our soil microbiome and its importance, the microbiome is very important in any farming system, and diversity is very important because these microbes interact with each other to survive. And their microbial synergy provides a number of ecosystem services that are highly valuable to your farming operation. So some of these services include carbon sequestration, nutrient cycling, and water purification, just to name a few. So we want to take care of our soil microbiome so it keeps working with us to increase our profits. Talking about your soil, you need to recognize that your soil is a nutrient factory. So we know that in 1 tablespoon of soil, just a little tablespoon, we've got billions of nutrient cycling microbes. They're already in your soil, they're native to your environment, and they are there to provide nutrients to your plant. So if we've got billions in a tablespoon, think about how many trillions are in a quarter section of land or 1,000 acres, and they're all already there to provide nutrients to your plants. They decompose organic matter. They convert atmospheric nitrogen, so nitrogen from the air, so your plants can use it. And then they also help with soil structure, aggregate formation, and a number of other things. We also know that plants and microbes communicate with each other to get what they need. So the plants will send out messages to the microbes in the soil, communicate what they need, and the microbes will respond back by giving the plant what it needs. So because we know there's trillions of nutrient cycling microbes already in your soil, they're native there, and we also know that plants and microbes communicate with each other. Our approach here at Sound Agriculture is we do not need to add any more microbes into the soil. We just need to activate what's already there and get it to work for you. So now we're going to step back and look at a couple of different farming systems. The one on the left is a high input farming system, so a very intensive input. We're also getting a high output there. And the farm on the right, we've got more efficient inputs. Couple that with robust soil processes, so a really healthy soil ecosystem. And we've also got a high output on the efficient system. I'm going to have John break down the systems in a little more detail for you. Hand it over to you.
So like Rebecca just mentioned, we can have a high input, still get the same yield. We could potentially reduce that input and still get the same yield by activating the microbes. What this is displaying is applying that nitrogen, and we're talking about nitrogen specifically in this one. You could think of it in other instances, phosphorus, that type of stuff as well. But as we apply more and more nitrogen, those microbes have to work less and less. That plant is taking up that available nitrogen that we applied and not kicking out the exudates for those microbes to actually do their job. So that's what this is displaying. While we apply that nitrogen, it is also susceptible to losses. So we can have leaching, we can have volatilization, all those other aspects. So in that instance, you're applying more and more in hopes that you can actually get that yield job. In more of a natural system, these plants are triggering these microbes to actually do that for us. There's a certain amount that they can take. In those high inputs, we're reducing the microbe activity by about half, so we're getting about half the input from those that we normally would. In this system, the plant's taking that carbon from the atmosphere, otherwise already in the soil, as well as nitrogen from the atmosphere, and using that to convert it into a plant available form. So a lot more efficient, a lot less likely to be lost, either leaching, volatilization, that type of stuff. We can kind of throw some numbers to this, and thinking about it, the nitrogen side, these numbers might be a little dated with some of the prices we're getting. 30 to 50% of that nitrogen that you apply gets lost through some sort of process, whether it's microbial loss, whether it's volatilization, while it's leaching, that type of stuff. Phosphorus, on the other hand, the majority of that gets tied up. It does get released later, whether it's the next season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons. Some of it gets tied up and we never get it. What does that actually come out to per acre cost? With these numbers, we're looking at that $50 to $85. That's quite a bit. Is there a better way to get that nutrition for those plants and actually increase your ROI at that point? So we're going to change gears a little bit. We're going to talk about source and what it can do for those microbes, how it can activate them and that type of stuff. Starting out, what is source? Source is a foliar applied chemical signal that actually gets translocated through the plant, goes into the soil, and then triggers your microbes to start working. At that point, those microbes kick out plant available nitrogen, phosphorus, that type of stuff, and the plant takes it up. It kicks out more exudates, it kicks out more of these signals that we're actually putting into the soil. So all in all, you're getting more efficiency through that. Really thinking about placement of source, how can we get the most benefit here? We've looked really hard at nitrogen and how that might benefit or hinder microbial activity. And what we're displaying here is basically a nitrogen yield response to nitrogen. So on your left side, you got your profit or your bushel per acre. Along the bottom, you got your total nitrogen applied. As we apply 1 pound of nitrogen or 1 unit of nitrogen, we get X bushel back. You keep doing that, eventually that pound of nitrogen or nutrient you apply, you start to reduce the amount you return from there, to a point where you can apply so much that you actually start to hinder your yield. Generally, we don't get to that point. We're normally sitting about a 1-to-1 nitrogen use efficiency, which is your pounds of nitrogen applied for your yield goal, or right around there. So the way we're looking at source here is, as we're looking at, if you're over that 1-to-1, we're going to end up reducing nitrogen, allowing those microbes to work, maintain your yield, but have less of that input cost. The other way is if you're already relatively efficient, you're supplying that plant with fertilizer throughout the season, multiple applications. We're going to maintain your fertilizer applications, but we're going to apply source with it and expect a yield bump. And all that's doing is it's reducing the potential of that stress. So if you apply nitrogen, it generally takes about a week to go through the soil and then get uptaken by the plant. Within that, you have some time for that stress to occur. These microbes are working right in that rhizosphere, So they're right close to the root system. Every day they're doing their job. You know, getting that higher microbe activity will reduce that stress potential, allow that plant to really pull in those nutrients. So that's where we can reduce or keep that same fertilizer, but yet expect that increase just because we reduce that stress. With that, what we're showing here is both of these graphs are in basically the same axes. So on the left side, we've got our difference in yield from source treated to untreated. On the y-axis, on the x-axis, we got our fields. We've noticed that there are soil properties, nitrogen like we've been talking about, and aspects like that can drive microbial activity. If a customer would buy source, apply it on whatever field they want, not consult about what would be the best field selection for that, we've seen about a 4.5 bushel increase 75% of the time. When they consult, which is displayed on the right here with us, on which fields are the best selection for source, we've seen a 7 bushel increase 90% of the time. So really diving in, seeing where that microbial activity will benefit you and get you your largest ROI. Similarly here, 2 independent studies. The one on the left, they showed a 25-pound nitrogen reduction without a yield loss, and that's over 2 years. So they've reduced 25 pounds across all the fields they put this on. They did not see any yield reduction. So this product where we're activating those microbes, they're getting a minimum of 25 pounds out of that. With the other study, it's over 1 year, they reduced 15 pounds of nitrogen, and they saw that yield increase. So reiterating that nitrogen use efficiency, where we can change our nitrogen rate or keep it the same and expect a return out of there. So there's 3 products that we offer: Source DC, Source Corn, and Source SC. Source DC is for wheat, cotton, alfalfa, grass hay, applied at 1 ounce an acre. Source Corn, basically corn, grain, or silage, applied at 0.7 ounces an acre. Source SC, soybean right now, applied at 2.5 ounces an acre. We haven't talked about when is this product applied. When do we get that most benefit for the microbes? I've got Source Corn and Source SC. They're displayed up here. If you guys got questions about the other crop, Source DC, that's more specific, so we'll dive into that separate. What I want you to think about is what type of temperature, soil conditions do we need for these microbes to work. So we're looking at in-season applications. And since it's foliar applied, we are going through the plant to get into the soil. So for Source Corn, we're looking at that V4 to V6. Or up to VT to R1 are the optimal times. We have a wide window as well. For Source SC, we're looking at V3 to V4, as well as R1 to R3. So changing gears a little bit here, we'll cover some of the pictures we've taken, some of the stuff we've seen in season, and then dive into some yield results. This slide right here is displaying our tissue analysis over 2 years and 319 fields, multiple crops. What we're showing on the chart here is our nutrients on the left in that analysis. The bottom is the percent change from our treated to our untreated. With that, we've seen an uptick in almost every single nutrient that we test for on average. I really like to point out here where Source is activating nitrogen-fixing microbes and phosphorus-solubilizing microbes, that those aren't the top 2 nutrients that we're getting increase in. So what other soil interactions, soil chemistry, soil biology is happening here to bring boron, manganese, and microbes to the top? What are we getting out of these microbes more than just nitrogen and phosphorus? And what all that relates to is basically healthier plant. We see larger roots. We encourage that root growth. They're scouring through the soil to find those nutrients at that time. We're also seeing more biomass, healthier biomass, greener plants, that type of stuff. interesting, we get a larger stalk diameter in those scenarios as well. So easier for those nutrients to flow through the plant. And all of that is because of microbial activity in the soil at that point. And what does that get you in the end? Most of the time that gets you a yield bump. You get heavier kernels, you get denser kernels, you get more yield. Soybeans, similar things, more root activity, that type of stuff. We're also seeing more nodes, more flowering points, more potential for pod set and that type of stuff. What I've noticed personally going through the fields is we're getting more full pods. We're not actually aborting a seed or getting that shriveled up seed in the top of that pod. We're getting more full pods. So while you can still have the same pod count, we're getting more seeds per acre out of that plant. There's a really interesting photo coming up here in a little bit that'll kind of show why they're filling out better and that type of stuff, and it can lead to an interesting discussion later. I always like to show a few pictures of what we saw in season, so I've got this one and another one. This is of a cornfield here in north central Nebraska. This application was about tassel. The picture there is showing, I guess you could say, quite a bit of difference in root structure, but actually looking at it when it was sitting on the tailgate, it really wasn't that different. What is happening in this instance is our soil structure is being changed. We're getting a better soil structure. Those microbes, as Rebecca mentioned earlier, they're helping build that porosity and build that stable aggregate, and it's going to hold on to these roots when we pull it out of the ground and that type of stuff. So I guess the biggest difference here is just how much soil is stuck on that treated plant compared to the untreated. Just giving it that pathway to get those nutrients. What does that give you? In the end, you get larger ears, you get more kernels, you get heavier kernels. It's all in all good. This is that soybean picture I was talking about. We get a lot of questions about, well, it's a different variety and that type of stuff, different planting date. Same variety, same planting date, the only difference was source. Fungicide with source, fungicide was spread across the whole field. This was source on the left with the fungicide. What's going on there? Given that soil structure is increasing, given that root biomass is potentially increasing, and all that's from microbial activity. That's it, nothing else. Microbial activity is increasing that. We saw boron was increased in those tissue analysis. What does boron do for late season vegetation or reproductive health? That's what we're getting here. This isn't necessarily common to see. This year with how dry it was, we started to see that. Very interesting to catch that. I was out there about 2 weeks prior to this photo, and it was all green. So the untreated basically said, I need to reproduce at this point, where the treated said, I can hold on longer, I can fill these pods, I can make more yield. And then get into a little bit of the data we have here. This is going to kind of reiterate that nitrogen use efficiency side of it. So our pounds of nitrogen again applied for our yield goal. I don't know if you guys can read the table, it's relatively small. The first arrow here is actually showing the nitrogen use efficiency for this grower. The top line and the bottom line are 0.7 pounds of nitrogen per bushel. The center line is a 1-to-1. Looking over at what our return is on that, this grower saw about a 6 bushel increase from his treated to his untreated on those 0.7 NUE scores compared to the 1.1 pounds of nitrogen to a bushel in the center there of about 2 bushel. What does that do to your ROI? Less nitrogen, you add this product, less nitrogen though, increased yield, more money in your pocket. So it all relates to that. And again, that's all from microbial activity, making those nutrients available to that plant when it needs it throughout the season. Here we're kind of demonstrating just the difference of timings and how we can see the similar results, same results throughout that. Field variability will play a role in what results are seen or soil health will. Site 1, Site 3, so the first picture and the second picture, or third picture, were applied at B6. Site 2 was applied at tasseling. Again, just that yield increase across all application time plays a little bit of a part, but we've seen real similar results in either activating that microbial activity.
Yeah, I can take this one. So as you just learned, source works. We talked about placement, getting up to 90% win rate there. So we are very comfortable standing behind our product with a performance guarantee. And it's very straightforward. So all that needs to happen, source needs to pay for itself in bushels or we'll refund the difference. So it's really easy to participate in that program. We can talk to you more after if you have interest in that.
With that, I'd like to thank you guys for coming out today and ask if there's any questions, comments, or thoughts. Yeah, I think so. I believe that one was applied about R3, so relatively late in the season. But I have to double check on that for sure. The question was, is there a more preferable time to apply source? Because we did have that window or all 2 timings. The data shows that there's not much of a difference in return on your yield. Personally, I would like to see an earlier application. I'd like to see that V4 to V6. I think about it in a way is, how can we get those microbes working for us longer? That's my opinion. Yep, so I was asked, do you do it before it's all foliaged out and that type of stuff? Yes, essentially you would. As long as you get some on that plant, it'll translocate it, it'll still spike that microbial activity. If it's applied to soil, it'll still spike microbial activity. The problem with that is, how do you get those nutrients to your rosette? Do you have enough water to keep pushing them down? This year, no. Some years, yes. But that is the issue with that. So yeah, more biomass better, but we've seen some results like either way. No. The problem with that is we're looking for the plant to sustain that microbial activity. In furrow, we would have anywhere from 2 weeks to a month or better before we had any type of root system there to help keep that microbial activity going. So we would have to figure out a way basically to sustain the chemistry in the soil for a longer time and not have it get degraded so quickly.
Is this on? Yeah, so right now we're just doing a single application.
Is it organic certified? No. While it is derived naturally from plants, we do make it in the lab, so it's synthetically made.
Source corn is 13 to 15 an acre right now, and source soybeans is 8 to 11 right now. I'm gonna do my math. back to his question about application timing and is there one better than the other, because I get asked that a lot. And John answered it accurately, but I just want to say most of the growers I work with like to do the yearly application for all the reasons John said. Also, most growers have their own sprayer. They like to see where it is in the field. They like to know where it is. But when we work with you on placement, we will talk through both application timing to determine which is a better fit for your operation. For example, if somebody is spoon feeding the whole entire season, I would maybe want to talk to them about maybe you want to do the later application, get source away from all that fertilizer. So there's different things to discuss that go into your placement and timing.
So Allison is referring to, I did some consulting prior to this, precision agronomy stuff, that type of deal. Worked with a guy for 4 years and really focused on driving down our nitrogen rates and being more efficient in that aspect. So I started with Sound in June, and I wrote this guy's prescriptions and fertility and everything. He went out and applied basically what I recommended. And then applied source on top of that. And we were about 265 pounds of nitrogen, shooting for a 270 bushel per acre yield. I probably would have told him to back off just a little bit. He does some manure and stuff on that field. If I was known he was applying source, but I didn't. Walking through the field, I would have told you there have been little to no yield response. There were some weather events and that type of stuff. But from what I've got back from him, what conversation we've had, he was pretty impressed with how source helped that plant sustain and bring out some yield. And it was a substantial amount that he actually saw from it. So I don't have the data to back it up yet, but very, very interesting. But that manure portion of that, with the nitrogen that we were applying, really drove how these microbes interacted and what they could do for our plants.
Feel free to come back and talk to us more. We're in the back northwest corner if you guys are curious about more information.
Yeah, we're at the opposite end. Can't miss us, right under the huge TV.